Hi, and welcome to If These Heels Could Talk.
I'm Michelle from Bad Cat Digital.
And I'm Joygina from Solutions by Joygina. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Joygina.
How are you?
Well, I'm good.
And
leaving for vacation in like 24 hours. So we're going to do this
going somewhere
fast.
warmer. Yes, we are. Oh, yes. I just looked at the time. You're right.
You know, this is 7 years. It's been 6.5, I don't know, a long time.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. And this is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to leave. But I'm super excited about it. And I'm really excited that the team is ready.
Hard to leave.
I'm ready. The team is ready.
I trust you. Trust this fact. About an hour after you've left, you aren't going to give a darn. That's the beauty. Like you drive away and you're still like tense. And then all of a sudden you're like, what? Where was I? Oh yeah, never mind. It's like, oh, we're fine.
Well, so today we are not talking about leaving or vacations. Today we are actually talking about something super interesting, which has kind of like a psychological backbone to it, but has implications for everyday kind of working office situations. So we're talking about the bystander effect. And the bystander effect is, well, technically,
yes,
it is the inhibiting influence of other people being present when an emergency situation happens, meaning that an individual is less likely to help in an emergency situation if there are other people around. And the more people, the less likely they are to help. This idea, right? Like you're seeing something happen and you don't call the police because you're assuming somebody else did. When was the last time you drove past somebody stranded on the side of the road, assumed they had a phone? I mean, everybody does, right? Assume they had already called for help, even though no help is there, or assumed somebody else will do it. That's the bystander effect. And this actually was something that they started doing heavy research in the mid 60s. There's a story of a woman who was, I'm not even going to, trigger warning. I'm not even going to go into, she was stabbed and sexually assaulted, and 38 people, individual people, 38 of them, alternatively over the course of 30 minutes, witnessed some part of this happening, heard her, saw something, and not a single one called the police or did anything to help. They didn't even and I mean simple things like this happen kind of by an apartment building. I mean simple things like flipping on their light to scare off the attacker.
Nothing.
And some people just were living their lives and didn't understand, scared off the attacker a couple of times. And he came back and continued to victimize this woman.
That's hard.
And
that's harsh.
So the point here of the bystander effect is this concept that we can watch something go wrong. And the more of us are watching something go wrong, the fewer of us are willing to do anything about it. And the more assumption we have that somebody else will. And I want to say really quick, the most common way I see this play out, and this is a very different scale than somebody being attacked, is in break room kitchens.
Oh, tell me
where your mother doesn't work here.
Oh, I love that. You mean the dishes that just sit in the sink?
Because it's a shared space that multiple people are responsible for. Most people should just clean up after themselves. But every time somebody uses a fork out of the shared drawer and they just leave it in the sink, or they don't rinse it off, or they don't put it in the dishwasher, or they don't empty the dishwasher when the dishwasher's clean, and then they leave their dirty stuff in the sink. And there's one, maybe two people who end up doing it every single time. And it builds this low level resentment over time.
So basically the Girl Scout chore chart still needs to be rocked at age 25 or 30.
We just changed the way that we were doing kind of routine cleaning around the office to literally pick up on something that somebody had in their kids' kindergarten classroom.
It's the chore
with these little paper, these little color coded things next to people's names, next to chores. I mean, literally 5-year-olds. Yeah. We picked up a system for 5-year-olds for a professional group.
Oh, not uncommon.
Right.
Not uncommon. You're right. That's a super very differently scaled, but it's still part of the same principle and effect.
Yes, it's still part of the same principle effect. So how do you recognize or see the bystander principle, the bystander effect, which is also sometimes called the bystander principle?
So it was interesting when you brought this up because I could Google, I did my little research / search the internet.
Yeah.
Watched a few videos, read up a little bit. Okay. So the first thing I did about that was apply a bunch of shame, blame.
Well, of course, but
as soon as you brought it up, I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel horrible. No. And I hate owning that this happens and it will happen again.
And it will happen again.
I hate knowing that.
It does somebody
take this information back. Like I don't like having it.
Whereas I find comfort in the fact that it's a named thing and it's human behavior.
Not okay with it. This it reminds me, I instantly related it to an experience where I was driving home on the interstate. I lived 30 miles out of the metro area.
Yes.
And on my way home, I looked over and there was this garage on fire. Like I could see it from the interstate. And I'm like, huh. And then I went, well, I suppose I don't need to call that in. It's already called in.
Yeah.
And then I was on the fire department. So I drove right to the fire station, assuming the fire trucks would be out. Nobody
had called it in.
And I went, oh my God. So then I called it in. But that was 5 minutes later after I saw it.
Right.
And I'm like,
well, it's a good thing it was only 5 minutes.
I don't know. Well, trust me, that thing burned to the ground. It was way past, by
the time you can see it from the highway in an old barn, the wood's dry, there's hay in it, like straw, everything in it is eminently flammable.
Well, it was the machine shed. So it was the flammable.
Then everything's covered in diesel fuel.
I'm
surprised it didn't explode.
I was too grateful it didn't. But that was when I realized I'm like, wow, I'm not doing that again. Like if I think I need to call, and then I had an opportunity over the past 15 years. I have a friend that worked in the dispatch center of the sheriff's department here in town.
Okay.
And you can go through a whole bunch of hoops and background checks and stuff. And you can have I had the opportunity to actually work a shift with her, to just sit next to her. Oh my God, beyond super cool. But that is when that's when I realized the immense value of those simple little phone calls. And now most departments, have text messaging. You can text things. So I, as a passenger, quite often will take a photo of a license plate and be like, this person is swerving obsessively. I have concerns.
You're a narc. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And I texted in and they text back. They're like, thanks, we'll look into it. It's not a big
Well, and the thing is that, I talk to myself, I'm like, oh, well, so many people have called that in. They don't need one more person bothering them.
And in the dispatch, if that happened, I was sitting there and there was, I don't remember what the situation was, but anyways, 10 people all called in to explain what it was. And I loved how they handled it. They're like, okay, we do have an initial, person we're talking to who's right there with the victim. And so we're that's handling, I need to pass you off to this person to just get some more information from you. And then after we had 2 or 3 people, then it was just, thank you so much for calling. Please do that again. They were really good about affirming that people called in and saying, please don't ever hesitate to do that again.
Yeah. And that's really good, because I think that part of the thing, I had an experience when I was a teenager, where there was a large deer on a city street, and I didn't know what to do because I thought, this is dangerous. The deer's going to get hurt. Yeah. People are it's around a blind corner, and I called and they're like, well, what do you want us to do about it? The deer was here first. Right. And so it's one of those
you've had an experience.
I know that. Right. And you don't have an animal control person that comes out and makes sure that people don't kill the deer or the deer doesn't,
well, and that's why there's if you Google, there's a non-emergency number,
which is the one I use.
Number. Exactly. So you call the non-emergency number for things
non-emergencies.
And I do think that years of additional training probably.
I mean, that was 30 years ago. Yes. So let's,
I'm thinking they've come along where they really, they want.
But that's the thing, that early, and now all of a sudden, it impacts this.
It totally adds to that bystander. I've been surprised. I've been in circumstances where there have been a crowd.
Right.
And I've been surprised nobody's doing anything.
And nobody moves.
And I didn't understand it. I'm like, People, like I've come on a scene and just been like, people, okay, you make a phone call, you do this, you do that, you breathe.
Well, and
like,
you have training because you were a first responder.
And so I do it.
So you have training. And so that's the thing. Like people will do things, but they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. So you've seen this in movies.
Oh yeah.
You've seen this in TV shows, like especially like medical dramas.
Oh yes.
Where somebody will be like in a restaurant or an airport and there's some problem.
They're choking or something.
Right. And then like the least likely person comes out of the crowd and is right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, but it's obvious that they know what they're doing. And so everybody just kind of does what they say. Right. Like people that people normally wouldn't listen to.
Yes.
And so it's just, but you can tell that it's kind of this thing. It's kind of like I don't want to take responsibility for this.
Or I don't want to be involved.
Yes.
Like the situation you brought up, the circumstance with this unfortunate woman, with this woman and her unfortunate passing, that whole circumstance, I guarantee their inner voice was like, I don't want to be involved.
I don't want to get involved.
I don't want to be involved. I don't want to have to stand
up. And
cops, I
also can say that there are some cultural things at play here too, because there's a lot of places on the planet and in the world and in the United States where getting involved can be actively dangerous for you and your family.
Right.
Whether that's getting involved because you're, watching something, you have witnessed something and you're willing to talk about it, or it's getting involved by contacting the police and calling somebody in. Not, let's just call it out. Not every community is policed the same way.
Right.
And so, and that is, part of something that I think we're working on systemically. So I trust first responders and I trust that, but that's not, so let's just make this a part of this conversation where it's like, no, this is not a blame thing and it's not a shame thing. This is a natural response to something bad that's happening to somebody else that you don't want to get all over you and you don't want to get all over your family and you don't know what's going to happen. So it's kind of safest to stay away. And that's a very human response to something really bad happening. And there are cultural situations where it's actively not good to get involved.
Right. And you have to, unfortunately, in microseconds, process and decide that.
Right. And and what the bystander effect or principle would say is that we're not actively deciding.
Right.
It's part of just
if nobody else
part
is
of a stress response.
Maybe this isn't really happening. Maybe it's not as bad as I think that it is.
Somebody else already took care of it.
Like I don't want to get involved if I don't need to.
Right.
Like I'm sure this is fine. Yes. All those.
The other way this plays out that I've seen the bystander effect play out is at large gatherings with lots of adults and very few children.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Family reunions, things. Yes. Okay, I got into more crap at holiday gatherings when I was a child because everybody assumes somebody else is watching the kids.
When I was in my younger years, you're right. I wound up being the parent of that one. Because I can't help myself, but I would wind up being like, okay, people, it is obvious that adults have left the building.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to make sure you don't harm each other.
My parents, I'll never forget this. My parents had a party at their house and my brother and sister-in-law were the only ones there with kids that were super young. I think they were under 5. Yeah. Well, I think there's only one of them there. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is that everybody assumes somebody else was watching and there's a 3-year-old now half a mile away down a country road around the corner that we can't find.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. It was a thing.
Oh yeah.
It was a thing.
That would be a thing.
So so
you're right. I can see that.
This is
another thing that really occurred to me about this was bullying.
Ah, yes.
Oh, I totally thought because this is funny, but during the last Great Recession, the 2008 one.
Right.
I took a job as a lunch lady. I worked a few lunch ladies in a local school district observing high schoolers. You would have
been an amazing lunch lady.
Thank you. I did enjoy schlop in the place.
Yeah. Sloppy Joes.
Yes. And you can watch high school bullying. Up
close and personal because it happens in the cafeteria.
You're the adult though, and they're a kid.
Yeah.
you can't interact the same.
No,
you cannot. So I had to go to my supervision, point out what I had observed.
right.
She had to tell a teacher who has the
Yeah.
authority
And then it's
to
like
have
this and then
contact
this and
with
then this
them.
and then this.
It was so many layers.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed, but I have to say, it was really challenging to watch others. Nobody got involved. There were multiple occasions I watched a person being openly bullied and harassed, and the people around them just did this because they didn't want to be part of it.
Right.
And they turned away. That was actually one of the reasons I was like, I don't care what amount of money, I actually can't watch this.
So that's actually the primary way that I see the bystander effect play out in an office environment. Bullying is pretty prevalent in an office environment, and you know, it's really obvious if somebody's not fitting in or when somebody's not fitting in, and it does play a factor in culture.
Yeah.
And it's really hard from an employment standpoint. Sometimes it's really hard to understand where that is being instigated, because it's usually not the person who's doing the bullying. There's usually like somebody behind it kind of masterminding it. And then there's a group of work minions that go out for that person and do the bullying. And so there's been conversation we've had a podcast. We had a podcast about a pot stirrer.
Yep.
And that's the person who kind of like deals with the gossip, and, you know, the office gossip, and walks up to somebody and goes, did you know that so-and-so said this about you? I mean, I'm just trying to be
the orchestra leader.
Yeah. I'm just trying to help you out and tell you that this person said this thing about you.
Yeah.
And maybe they did, and maybe they didn't. And maybe they said it, but maybe they said it in a different context. And so you've got somebody who's actively stirring drama.
Yeah.
But that can happen in a bullying sense as well. In fact, I would say that's an element of bullying.
It is.
And when that happens, it can be really, really hard to get it all the way back to the instigator. And until you get that out, because it's never going to change.
No, until you get the leader,
that ringleader of that out of your organization.
Yeah.
It will never change.
And it might be one of your top producers. I will just warn you now. It, like, on paper and to you,
yes,
they might be one of your top producers. Because whatever they produce, though, is not worth it.
For the toxicity. That's the insidiousness of that bully. When I think about my bullies, when I think about other people who bully, they're people who usually have the, you know, kind of authority of the authority figure. Yeah. Like, they have the backing or the assumption of backing. Right. And so they've gotten to know, and they
get themselves in the right position to have some power,
and then they use it.
That's how bullying works.
Yeah. And so that in and of itself, you need to be thinking about that, because it's not going to go away. And the bystander effect is going to mean that other people on the team are going to let it happen.
Yes.
And they're not going to stand up for somebody, and they're not going to stick their face in it, and they're not going to let you know.
And they're not going to know how to do a lot. And
they're not going to know what to do
that.
And they're going to feel awkward, and they're going to shy away from the whole situation, and you're going to lose people.
Yes.
You're going to lose not only the person who's being bullied.
Yes.
But you're going to lose the good people next to them who just don't want to deal with it.
Right. Like, I didn't want to continue watching these young people getting bullied in a system that took 5 people for me to get over. Like, I couldn't just step in front of
this. And then nothing would happen.
Right.
That's the thing. Like,
because they didn't see it. I saw it.
Right.
And now it's just my word against this teenagers. Like,
well, and you'd think you'd take an adult's word against a teenager just about any time.
Right. But that's
other than some really obvious scenarios.
Right. So a couple of things points I wanted to just bring in here is if you do feel a twinge, like you're like, okay, wait a minute, you can disrupt the situation. I've done this. I saw a couple screaming, raging. It was a man raging at a woman.
Okay.
And I went over and feigned that I was lost.
Interesting.
I'm like,
so you didn't address the situation that was happening, but you stopped it from happening.
I'm like, oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I know you guys are I'm sorry, but I am so lost. I'm trying to find this thing here. Like, I made crap up fast. I'm
wow, what a great idea.
And the guy just kind of looked at me like, do you know? All of a sudden I put him, like, he couldn't believe, like, he's like, are you not seeing what's happening here? Are you not catching this energy? And I just kept pretending like I was completely the most blonde woman alive. And I'm just like, And the woman, like,
she was probably super grateful, and he was like, "Oh, you dumb woman."
She caught her breath, and then I'm like,
wow,
well, can you walk me
that's
over
brilliant.
there?
You're brilliant.
I could get lost. Oh my God.
You're brilliant.
And he was starting to get ragey with me, and I'm like, I can handle you. And I had a friend that was watching. I knew what I was getting into. I said, I need you to be ready to call 911, and I need you to videotape this to make sure that if this goes wrong. I was aware.
Yeah.
And he was not violent. He was just aggressive. He was escalating. He was
vocally aggressive.
And I'm like, okay, I think we're at a place though where we could.
Yeah.
So he walked me off, and my friend went over and got the gal and just sat her down and gave her a coffee. We've been sitting outside, and she sat her down and got her a coffee. And
wow, you're brilliant.
I knew he was going to come back with me, but he was in a very different state.
Yeah, because you stopped. Like,
I'm like, oh, thanks for showing me that. Now
you stopped the train before it. Like, it's like a runaway train, and you stopped it.
And I was just like, I'm not, like, this happens behind closed doors, and I know it. But in this moment, I am not standing here.
Right.
Watching this.
I can't watch this.
And it could have gone a million ways wrong. I'm not recommending you do this. I made that choice.
Right.
I made that choice at that moment.
You made it with some fail safes in place.
I did.
Yes.
But still, I mean, I didn't know if the guy had a weapon or not.
Yeah.
It crossed my mind.
Yeah.
But yes, you disrupt, you distract, right?
Yes. Like a toddler.
Right. It is. It's really, and then you redirect. I need you to walk me to that location. Like, can you show pointing? I'm so confused. Yes. Disrupt, distract. Redirect.
I love it. And I think something similar with bullying too.
Yeah.
Disrupt it.
You don't have to call it bullying in the moment, because now we're confrontational.
Yeah, you don't have to escalate. This is about de-escalation.
Right.
Not escalating.
But you can get physically, you can get in between things. I do that quite often.
I really like your notebook.
Yeah. That's just it.
Where did you get it?
Right.
Can I be completely blind to what's going on and have this long conversation with you about a notebook?
Or take the victim. A lot of times I'll do the distract and disrupt, and I'll take the victim away. I need this person to help me with this right now.
Yeah.
And they're coming with me. And it's like, we're leaving now. And you're just going to have to figure that out. All craziness. Another thing I would strongly, if you trust law enforcement, let me put it that way.
Yes.
If you trust law enforcement, I have been working on, after being in the dispatch center and seeing how that operated and getting comfortable with it, I now encourage myself when I go, oh, maybe someone should call that in. I'm like, you're that someone, booby head.
Like, call
it in. And I've gotten much better about just calling things in to get in the habit. So when something really major happens, I now have a little bit of muscle memory.
Sure.
And I'm not as afraid. I don't just have that one experience with the person that said, well, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Instead, I've talked to multiple people.
Yeah.
I get this is how this works. We have a relationship a little bit. Like, I'm going to come up on their cue.
Your comfort. Yeah. Your comfort level is higher.
It is. And so those are some of the ways I want to push back on that, because I'm not okay with that as a society and with myself. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
I want to do better.
Yeah.
People need me to do better. My fellow community members, like, as a woman, we got to take care of other women.
Yeah, we got to take care of each other.
Yeah, we wind up on the end of this. Like, let's get real. It happens.
Well, that's what we were talking about on If These Heels Can Talk today. We're talking about the bystander effect. So the next time you're at an airport and you see something, you're actually supposed to say something. It's not just a marketing campaign. Because thinking about that marketing campaign at airports, if you see something, say something, is a direct response to the bystander effect and how it operates in crowded situations. So thinking about that, enjoy your week, have fun, and the next time you witness a crime, be sure you call it in if you can.
If you can.
If you feel safe. Absolutely.